Today I get to step into the shoes of a true American endurance legend, Hurley Haywood. Here I am at Le Mans Vintage Edition, driving a Porsche 936. Just the perfect place to be racing this car. The 936 was a fairly successful car, winning its first time out in '76, and then two other times, 1977 in the hands of Hurley Haywood, the subject of this video, directly, indirectly. Battling with a Renault A442, the way it should be done. So I've always wanted to use this series to highlight cars that maybe have gone unloved in the rest of sim racing oddities, if you will. And I think the 936 qualifies. It came between the icon, the 917 for Porsche, which obviously it had the 91710 and the 91730 Can-Am versions, which were monsters, and those appear in sim racing in various forms. And it was bookended in the early 80s by the 956, 962 prototypes, which have become icons of their era as well. And in between, you kind of had a weird era of Le Mans racing with, you know, a Gulf Mirage winning. You had the 936 show up. You had a Rondeau win in there, a privateer Rondeau. The 935s did pretty well. And then this was the dominant factory effort of the era. Won first time out in the hands of, in 1976, in the hands of Jackie Ickx. I think that was his second Le Mans victory. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this is a very attractive car. I don't think it was an attractive era, personally. The 935 is it's a bastardization of the silhouette car era with its Moby Dick tail and slant nose. I do much prefer the Renault A442 with its bubble dome. It looks more like a closed prototype, slightly better looking car. But again, not the best era for race cars and actually just road cars as well. This car was a bit of a Frankenstein. I've seen a formula online. 908 plus 917 plus 935 equals 936. And that's kind of what this car became. It sits on a version of a 908 chassis. It's got a fairly small capacity, 2.1, between 2.1 and 2.2 liter turbo engine, which has got some pretty good punch. So by 1977, Hurley had won the Daytona 24 Hours several times, all driving Porsche. He joined the factory team for '77, teamed with Jürgen Barth, and they were most likely the Rabbits, meant to break down the Renaults, essentially. They were definitely not the lead car. And certainly the race did not start in a very auspicious way for them. Hurley took the start. At the first lap, going into the S's, the throttle sticks wide open. Wisely, he shuts the ignition so he doesn't blow the engine. By the side of the track, manages to get the throttle linkage fixed. They lose about a lap and a half, but what they didn't realize was the other Porsches were going to have problems as well, bigger problems. And both other factory Porsches were broken down by nighttime, which left kind of Jackie X was on the sidelines. You had one Porsche left, so obviously it made sense to Porsche management to stick Jackie in Jürgen and Hurley's car, where he really kicked butt during the night, got the car's laps back, and despite some late drama with the engine, managed to pull out the victory. The engine was running very poorly, smoking up a storm toward the end of the 24 hours. They put Jürgen Barth back in the car because he had a little bit more mechanical sympathy, and he nursed the car home, and the engine promptly blew up just after crossing the finish line, literally within 100 yards. Good enough for the victory, though. Hurley's first. We'll talk about his other two victories later. But 2 victories for the 936 on the trot. That's a pretty good start. I have very vivid memories of racing this version of the track in GP Legends. I think it needs a bigger SO man. Love that chicane. So much better than the current Ford chicanes. Let's see if I can reel this guy in. This long sweep to the original Dunlop Bridge is just awesome. And then staring down this cavern, these wonderful banking through here. Can't go too fast out of there. And then gotta be so clean pulling onto the Mulsanne, because you're gonna be here a while. I was never really a big fan of this version of the long Mulsanne because you're really doing close to nothing for a minute. In real life, obviously, it's kind of terrifying. In the 956, 962, it was almost peaceful because the car was rock solid, quiet. You were just blasting in a cocoon through the French countryside at 200, say 40 miles an hour. Yep, make some tea. Of course, if I were to add the lap traffic that they faced at the time, things would be a lot more interesting. You'd have very slow Ferraris and standard 911 Carrera RSRs. Through the old hairpin, past the signaling pits. Just wonderful to have this car and this track coming straight from the developer. It's really one of the reasons why I grew attached to Project Cars 2 was the amount of unique content that they packed in. I don't think I ever said, boy, I wish a sim had the Porsche 936. But I'm glad it's here for sure, and it certainly tells me that there are some fans of Le Mans who were working at Slightly Mad Studios at the time. There was some wonderful content that came out in the Porsche DLC, as well as the Le Mans Spirit of Le Mans DLC. It's a shame anybody out there who doesn't already own this package, they won't be able to sample this package unless it gets the software gets cracked and you can get it that way. I hate doing that because that's just bad news to run cracked software. Well, here I go. It's not a win. My first time out, like Hurley was able to accomplish. But I'm pretty satisfied moving up a couple places in this gorgeous car. Well, this fun to drive car on this gorgeous track. In part 1 of simulating Hurley Haywood, I took a blast through the French countryside in the Porsche 936, the car that Hurley drove to his first Le Mans 24-hour victory. Now I'm going to move on to another prototype, one not quite as successful, but just as iconic and stunning.